Okay, so for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to take an image from Illustrator, a vector image, bring it into Photoshop, and make a video animated GIF. Now, you don't need Photoshop, you don't need Illustrator to be able to do this, right? You can do all this stuff in Photoshop, but in this case, doing simple shapes like this is super easy in Illustrator, and I know there are quite a few graphic design students in the class, so yeah, this morning I put together, just quickly here, a Frankenbear. Don't ask me why. One thing that you really want to be careful about, though, if you build this in Illustrator, is make sure that any element that you want to move needs to be on a separate layer. Okay. Now, what you want to do from Illustrator when you've made your illustration, okay, so for example, like I want the eyes, to move, right, separate from the eyeball. Okay. So I called them cornea, put them on their own layer. Okay. You don't want to try and bring this in as an Illustrator file. Photoshop will read Illustrator files, but it'll flatten everything onto one layer, and I'll show you. So what you want to do once you've done this is you want to go to Export, Export As, name it whatever you want. Make sure you pick wherever you want to put this. Okay, and then you're going to get this dialog box. In order to export to layers, okay, in order to write them, it has to be in CMYK. Okay. Unless your image is gigantic, you can do 300 ppi, that's not a problem. And then you want to make sure to click the option Write Layers with maximum editability. You don't need to embed the profile unless you really want to. It's not a big deal, and hit OK. Okay. It won't take long for that to come to save. So I'm going to come into Photoshop now. This is the file that I opened up in Photoshop. Okay. So File, Open, right? And I open the frankenbear.psd. Let me show you what happens if I try and open up the Illustrator file. So it's going to bring up this dialog box. Okay, it's going to talk about the size, the bit depth, all that stuff. Okay, when I hit OK, it puts everything on one layer. Okay, so the entire image is on one layer. All right, this is why, even though, again, you can work in Illustrator and bring that directly into Photoshop, export, okay, as a .psd, okay, and then open it up in Photoshop. And now you'll notice I have all my layers. Okay, so in your timeline, and again, you get there by Window, right? If you don't see it, Window, Timeline. From the drop-down menu here, instead of creating a frame animation, I'm going to create a video timeline. Okay. And when I do that, what happens is Photoshop will automatically put everything on separate layers here and on separate timelines. Now down at the bottom of the page, usually this is what you get. You can pull this up. Okay, you can also take the timeline, if it's easier, and pull it to either side. If I had two monitors, honestly, I would probably put the timeline on one and keep the image on another. Okay. Now the way video timelines work is different than frame animation. Okay. And by the way, I did something specifically here in order to show you like what not to do, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. Now, right now, okay, this is going by frames. So here's 20 frames. Okay, it's set at 30 frames per second. So there's 1 second. Here's 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Okay, right now it's set to 5 seconds. We're not going to need a full 5 seconds because I'm just going to do a very quick little movement back and forth. Each layer, you'll notice, is right here. So let's say with the eyebrows, I want to raise the eyebrows, right? So if you click on the arrow next to eyebrows, you get a drop down. And you have three choices. You have your position, your opacity, and your style. Okay, so you can animate any of those. My eyebrows are currently right here. Okay, I'm going to click position, and you see how it puts a little diamond here? Okay, right in this spot. That means that's one of your keyframes. Now, if you've ever worked or know anything about traditional animation, okay, your keyframes are the most important movements of your animation. And what you do is, usually the master animator, whoever's in charge, will lay out all the keyframes, and then they'll have people fill the stuff in between. Okay, so anytime I want to change positions, opacity, or style, I'm going to insert another keyframe. So I'm going to come 10 frames in. So I'm going to pull this to 10 right here, and I'm going to click this diamond right here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise my eyebrows, okay, to something like that. Now, you'll notice when I scrub in between those two, okay, the nice thing about a video timeline is it automatically essentially does the tweening. Okay, now by the way, right here next to you have this little drop down menu with your gear. You want to click on that and make sure you do loop feedback. Okay, you want to do that so that when you play it through, it'll move. Okay, so if I hit the space bar, right, that'll start and stop. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is with my top eyelids, I'm also going to change their position. I'm going to scrub to this next area. I'm going to click the diamond again to insert another keyframe. I want to make sure I'm on my top eyelids, and then I'm just going to nudge them upwards. Okay, to that. Okay. There we go. Now, with the actual eyes themselves, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go to the beginning, click on position. At the 10th frame, I'm going to click and insert a keyframe, and now I'm going to pull them to the right. Okay, so there's my animation. And then I'm just going to, I could do a whole bunch of this. I'm just going to show you a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do the mouth. Okay, same thing with the position. Click on that. Oops. I want to make sure I'm at the beginning of the animation. Click on that. Go to my 10 seconds. Add another keyframe. Okay. And now, well, I'll pull the mouth up. We'll do that. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, so here we go. Now this is what this looks like so far. Okay. Now let's say for my loop, I want everything to come back to where it was. Okay. What I can do is I can copy that first keyframe. Here I am at 20 frames. I'm going to put another keyframe in. Okay, and I'm going to paste so it goes back to the beginning. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the mouth. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and scrub up to 20, insert a keyframe. I'm going to click on my first keyframe for the mouth. I'm going to copy it, click on that keyframe and paste it. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the eyebrows and the eyelids. So I'm going to click, I'm going to copy that position, insert my keyframe, click on it, paste it. Okay, I'm going to copy, same thing on the eyebrows. Here I am at 20 frames in, paste. Okay, there we go, good. All right, so now if I play my loop, this is what's happening. But you'll notice, all right, Photoshop has it set to 5 seconds. Okay, we can shorten the timeline. That's not a problem. It is a little bit clunky in that we're going to have to, if you hover at the edge of the bar here, it's going to give you a symbol with 2 arrows. We're going to have to pull it in. Okay, and we're going to have to do it for every single one of them. So it is slightly annoying. It's not ridiculous, but it is slightly annoying. So let me go ahead and pull this in. Okay, and obviously the more complex your image is, the more stuff that you have, the more time this is going to take. But again, I would say for simple animations, and especially if you're doing something for like a web page, this is super easy. I have done video editing. There's a reason why I don't do video for what I like. Here's the problem, right? So the head I had saved as a group in Illustrator. Okay, so it will import as a group. The problem is, you notice if I try and pull this, Photoshop won't let me do it. So this is sort of a weird little quirk. Just the way it's done, I don't like it. You have to drop down in the group, okay, and you have to move each one of these individually. So coming from Illustrator, if you're making stuff in Illustrator, I recommend not having it in a group. Okay, that will make your life a whole lot easier. especially if it's big things. So you notice now the entire animation, okay, is much shorter. And now when I click, okay, this is the animation that I have. Okay, let me show you a couple other things here real quick. I also have a texture that I plopped in, okay, right above the head, and I went ahead and just made a clipping mask. Okay, so if you ever saw Chowder, okay, on Cartoon Network, this is very similar to what they did, where they had the figures moving, and essentially they made a clipping mask of a texture behind them. Okay, not in Photoshop, I'm sure, but it's the same idea. Okay, so I can't even take that texture here. Again, click my arrow. I can change the position. So at 10 frames, I'm just going to, oops, not what I want to do. Make sure I'm on the right layer. This is because I have auto select on. Okay, make sure I'm on the texture layer. Pull it down and up a little bit. Okay. Come to the end of the animation, insert another keyframe. Okay, copy the first keyframe, insert it in the last one by pasting it. Okay. So now when I play it, you'll notice, okay, I've got the texture moving back and forth. Now here's the thing too that you can also do. So your styles as well. So if I come to the eyes, okay, let me go ahead and collapse these. Here's the cornea. So at the beginning, I'm going to do a keyframe for the style. And in the middle, I'm going to add another keyframe, double click on my layer, and I'm going to add, let's see, I'll do an outer glow. Okay. And let's make it red because he's angry or something. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to make the opacity higher. Now it just kind of looks like he's been smoking weed, but that's all right. This is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, I'm going to scrub to the end. Insert another style keyframe. Okay. Go back to my beginning one, copy it, and paste it. If I did this right, here's what we get. There we go, beautiful. So I just did some fairly simple things, and that took, what, less than 10 minutes, maybe 15, I don't know where we're at here on the video. So you can take this and extend it and make something pretty complex pretty quickly here in Photoshop. And again, you don't need Illustrator to do this. You could draw the different elements, right, on each layer here in Photoshop. It's just, for me, if I'm laying stuff out in Illustrator, this took me, I don't know, 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes total to lay out in Illustrator. It would take me much longer to do it here in Photoshop. And you can do the same thing that you did before, right, with this. You can export it. So one of the ways that you can export it as, let's just do the simplest way, which we could render the video. You could make a little video. You could save for web, okay, just like we did with the lake GIF. That's assuming that Photoshop wants to comply here. By the way, I was watching a video with someone who's a Photoshop expert, and they kept saying GIF, and it drives me up the wall. I know I've complained about it before. You'll notice this is now huge, right? We don't need it nearly as huge as this. Okay, so I'm going to reduce to about 25%. And again, it's going to take some time. And this is a nice new Mac too. I don't know why. Yeah, 20.35 megs is far too large. In fact, I'm going to reduce it to 20%. Okay. And I can play it in here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Like 10 minutes of this video is going to be sitting here waiting for this stupid thing to load. There we go. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this into the same folder as all my other stuff. Okay. And now when I go into my folder, let's see. Let me back out of here. Okay, module 10. I'm going to open with Google Chrome. Okay. And there we go. I now have this goofy thing moving back and forth. So, all right. So for this file, what I want you to do, again, much like the first one, you can make whatever you want. Okay. What I want to see though, is you animating more at minimum 3 parts of it. Okay. So on your video timeline, you have at least 3 areas that are moving. You are not restricted as to time. You can also, like I said, you can go to File and you can export this as a video. I don't have a problem with that either way, as long as I can look at it and see that you are doing an animation and that it involves more than one thing. Okay, again, it saves it automatically as an MP4. Okay, again, so minimum of, I would say minimum, at the bare minimum, 20 frames. Okay, now that's less than a second. So however ambitious you're feeling, want to try this out, go for it. And if you have any questions, please make sure to go ahead and send me an email. Good luck.